Hey, top of the evening to you guys. I'm about halfway on my walk. That's why it might be a little bit dark. I'm sitting down on my sitting down rock, which is basically about halfway. It's really the only place. My walk is, it's got to be a mile, maybe a mile and a half. There's no place else to sit. There's just aren't any other rocks on this walk I go on. So when I get here, I usually sit down for a few minutes. So what was going on today? Well, let's see. I wanted to comment a little bit about, I saw Jesse Ventura being interviewed on CNN. Oh, it was today. I think it was this morning I was watching it. You guys know Jesse Ventura, right? Navy SEAL, was in the WWF. That's what it used to be called. The World Wrestling Federation, right? Well, turned out that the World Wildlife Fund had those initials long before the World Wrestling Federation. So they sued the World Wrestling Federation. They made them change their name to WWE, World Wrestling Entertainment or something like that. So Jesse Ventura was involved with that group. Hulk Hogan and those guys. He was one of those showmen. But he was also, I believe he was a two-time governor of Minnesota, which of course, Mr. Waltz is the current governor of Minnesota. So it's kind of interesting. And he was on there, and apparently J.D. Vance has attacked the service record of Tim Waltz. I think we kind of touched on this the other day. Apparently Tim was in the National Guard in 24 years, and he decided to retire. Well, 2 months after he retired, his unit deployed to Iraq. And so this person on CNN is asking Jesse Ventura about it, and he says that J.D. Vance is accusing him of stolen valor, accusing Tim Waltz of stolen valor. And boy, Jesse Ventura got really irate about it. And he says, and by the way, what is the National Guard doing going to Iraq? He says the National Guard is supposed to be here in the United States. That's to guard us internally if there's any kind of insurrection or riots or anything like that. And he goes on to explain, well, the Iraq War started by George Bush and Cheney, and about 2003 we went in and invaded Iraq on the notion that they had material to make weapons of mass destruction. Turned out not to be true. So Jesse Ventura was saying, yeah. And so what happened was they were running out of soldiers, regular enlisted soldiers. These regulars were having to do 2-3 tours of duty. So they got the bright idea, well, let's just vector in the National Guard, So I thought he made a pretty good point. And he was like irate about this. J.D. Vance would attack this guy, this fellow military alumni. So that was kind of interesting. And let's see, was there anything else on the Trump side? There must be something. You know what else I was thinking about? Was I happened to watch a little bit of the Harris Tim rally over in Las Vegas, Nevada. Turned that on. That was sometime this afternoon they started that. And I'm watching it for a little bit. And I'm realizing that they are starting to develop this stump speech. You know what a stump speech is? That's a speech that you basically deliver everywhere you go, right? There's just one problem with that. That worked in the old days when there were 2 or 3 television stations, and TV station might carry some stump speeches, and if they did, they would be abbreviated. They might be a couple of minutes, and then a commentator would commentate on it. But now, with the internet, you can watch these stump speeches all over the internet from start to finish. And the problem with that is after you've seen a couple, you go, well, that's exactly what they said in the last town they were in. I get it. We're going to fight for freedom. I was a prosecutor. I put bad guys in jail, etc. And they don't want to really talk much about policy yet. They want to wait until after the convention because they're on a roll right now and they don't want to upset the apple cart. So I have a suggestion to make this a little bit more interesting so that people will kind of follow them around the country and tune them in, because the reason you're going to be tuned in is because it will be the unexpected. So here's what I suggest they do. They're not going to listen to me. I'm sure this will never get back to them. But how about along the way in your little stump speech, and abbreviate that, we all know your positions on all that stuff, how about you start telling us some personal stories? Like, Tim, you grew up on a farm. You must have just hundreds of stories that would be so enriching and so captivating. Oh, hey, remember that time in '64 we had that real bad winter? We had to go out there and feed the cattle. I remember my dad going out there. We had to jump the truck with the jumper cables, man, and it was snowing. And then, hey, when I was football coach, we were in the quarterfinals. I'll never forget it. We had this player, and his name is Jimmy Jones. He was our quarterback, and he'd injured his arm playing basketball a couple of days before, and we sent him to the doctor. Kamala, she could talk about her time going to college. She said she worked at a McDonald's. Tell us some stories about that. You know, this is how people begin to connect. And you guys both have a pretty rich past that the common person can identify with. Now, you're both living in some pretty lofty heights, but go back to your beginnings, because those stories are what are really talk about your character. I'm just saying that share that richness with us. And whenever you go to a new city, find out something about that city. Like you were in Las Vegas. Man, you could have come up with so many great stories about what a wild town Vegas was when it started, you know, and how the construction of the dam played such an integral part, and taming that river, you know, and all the benefits. And that was done during Franklin Roosevelt's time. There's so many things. So when you go to a city, before you get there, find out a lot about the history of that city. Have somebody tell you about it. Have somebody tell you interesting stories about it that you can relate to us while you're on the campaign trail, rather than just your stump speech. That way, me and a lot of other people will turn you in, because I turned it on today, and I just, as soon as they started saying the same thing, I just basically fast forwarded through it. I'm going to vote for them, obviously, but I'm just saying, if you want to increase your base, that would be a really smart thing to do. So I'm going to tell you a little story about my past. You know, when I was in the martial arts, we used to, I think I might have mentioned, every Friday night we would fight. It's called kumite. And we try to fight as close to realistic fighting as possible without hurting the other person, without you getting hurt. Because if you get hurt, then you can't come back and train. You won't be a training partner. So we try to make it as realistic to a genuine fight as possible. So on Friday nights, that's all we did, was we fought for, I don't know, an hour or so. And everybody fought everybody in the class. I fought kids. I fought Marines. I fought women. Everybody else was younger than me. So everybody I fought was younger than me. So you get a variety of fighting, and that's how you get better by doing that. So I was thinking, one of the things that my instructor tried to teach me when I was first in there, and I was a little bit timid, he said to me, Packard, you need to find your dark side. You know, don't you have a dark side? Don't you have any anger? Because I'm a pretty mellow person, you know. I'm very laid back. I'm not aggressive at all. I'm very pacifistic. And I thought about it, and I said, well, I'm just not that way. He says, well, I want you to think back in your past and see if you can think of any time when you were aggressive. So I remembered this time. I must have been probably 12 years old or so. And my dad, I think I told you, my dad had, I'm going to start walking again because it's starting to get dark. My dad had burger restaurants. The one that I started working in was called Curly Top Cone. I was 12 years old when I went to work there. And then not too long after that, he bought another burger place. It was a little bit bigger, a little bit nicer place. And it's probably about a year or so after that. So I think I was still about 12 at the time. So he buys this other place and he has these flyers printed up because he wants to advertise his burger place, and he's got like a coupon on there to get people to come in. So the way they're going to get distributed is he gives me a stack of them, and he instructs me and my younger brother Marshall, who's 6 years old at the time. He says, I want you guys to go around the neighborhood here, and I want you to stick these flyers in people's front doors. Just stick them in the screen door. So, okay, so he gives me this stuff, and we're just walking. We walk away from the restaurants, right, sort of in a residential area on a commercial street. So we walk away from the restaurant, we find a street, and I tell my brother, I said, well, you go down that side of the street, and I'll go down this side of the street. So I start walking down the street, and I'm going up the house, and I'm putting flyers in there, and all of a sudden, I hear my brother's kind of crying. I look over on the other side of the street, and there's some kid over there that's bigger than him. So I go over there, and I said, what's going on? And my brother says, he's telling me not to do it. He's going to beat me up. And I just exploded on this kid, man. You ever talk to me? You ever touch my brother? I'm going to break your neck. And this kid just turned like 3 sheets of white. I don't know where that came from. I have no idea. But he's messing with my family. And man, after that, my brother's just looking at me like, whoa, man. And so that was the first time that I remember that kind of came out. And so I started to look for that when I was kumitain, when I was fighting, to try to develop that. And over time, I was able to throw that switch on, but never in anger. Just like turn on the intensity, direct the intensity. And as you're in the martial arts longer and you move up in the ranks, you're beginning to it gets to the point where most everybody else in the class is below your rank, and you're just a lot better than them. Even though I was old, I think I was 57 when I got my black belt. But nevertheless, people come in there and they're new and they put on a white belt or else they're a purple belt or a green belt. And all that practice really pays off, and it gives you the confidence that helps you do better. So that was the dark side that I summoned, and they need to summons a little bit of that and be a little bit more combative, but tell those stories, tell those personal stories of struggle and victory that you went through that people can relate to. They love that sort of stuff. So I think that's going to probably do it for tonight. What are we at? We're at 13 minutes. Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, thanks for joining me, and I will see you again. I don't know about tomorrow night. You never know. I got some stuff I got to do tomorrow. The fabulous Fabian left today, drove down to Orange County to my daughter and my son-in-law's place and my grandkids' place. They're going to get on a plane tomorrow. They're flying to Idaho, where they got an Airbnb up there on a lake, and they're going to be up there for about a week. So I stayed home, take care of the animals, take care of the farm, take care of the garden, and talk to you guys. So thanks again for watching, and we'll talk to you soon. Good night.